new poll shows a majority of Americans believe abortion is morally wrong, and 3 out of 4 Americans believe it should be restricted. Here are some other key findings. 4 in 10 say abortion is a major factor in how they vote in presidential elections. 2/3 say abortion is morally wrong when the unborn baby has genetic issues like Down syndrome. 46% of Americans believe it's a scientific fact. Life begins at conception. This annual Marist poll on abortion is sponsored by the Knights of Columbus. And joining me now, Andrew Walther, Vice President of Strategic Communications and Planning for the Knights. Welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you.
You've been sponsoring this for almost 10 years. Are you seeing a trend for life?
Yes, this is the 10th year of the poll, and I think absolutely we have seen a trend that shows that there is a consistent consensus for restricting abortion in a substantial way in this country. And that has been 3/4 or more basically for the entire 10 years.
That 3/4, or I guess it was specifically 76%, include Democrats, Republicans, Independents. They all think that there should be restrictions. So
Sure.
Why aren't there restrictions?
Well, I think right now the debate is at the ends of the spectrum. So you have people on either end of the spectrum driving a debate, and you have an American consensus that's maybe imperfect in terms of the way that it's viewed from both of the ends of the debate. But if you take that 76% number, people that would limit abortion to at most the first 3 months of pregnancy, and you're at about 50% for people that would limit it just to rape, incest, or life of the mother, you have the opportunity to get policy done with 3/4 of the American people on your side that I think people that are pro-life would applaud. And when you look at the numbers, you have a majority of people that identify as pro-choice would applaud this. You have a majority of Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. 6 in 10 Democrats, about 8 in 10 Independents, 9 in 10 Republicans would all be on board with that kind of legislation.
But it is so divisive here in Washington. What can politicians take from this poll as they go out to campaign for the 2018 midterms?
Well, I think there were a couple of things. One is that abortion is a very important issue, not just in presidential races, but I think it was 45% of Americans say it's important in congressional races. So there is a sense in which this drives people's political thinking, especially when it comes to voting. There's also a sense in which people need to start to understand that abortion restrictions are actually popular with the American people. These kinds of laws are not something that puts the American people off. These kinds of laws are things that anywhere from 6 in 10 to 76% of the American people are on board with.
So then what does it mean to be pro-choice?
Well, that's increasingly difficult to tell, because when you ask someone who identifies as pro-life, what do you think about this restriction or that restriction on abortion? They are almost universally 9 in 10 times going to come out with the pro-life answer on that. When you ask someone who identifies as pro-choice, what do you think about this restriction or that restriction? You've got a 5 in 10, 6 in 10 chance that they're going to identify with the pro-life position on that restriction. So the pro-choice label, I think, has outlived its usefulness in terms of telling us what somebody actually thinks about a policy regulating or restricting abortion in a particular way.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Andrew Walther, Vice President of Strategic Communications and Development at the Knights.